hate to do this, but I'm not really sure how we would get it to everybody, and so what I would like to do is just table it, and then we'll have to do it again. And I'm so sorry, but I just don't see a way to. What's reflected is all the changes, but the form does not.
It's the old form.
Yeah, well, it's got some edits, but not all of them for some reason, so I apologize. And, but we have a granite appeal hearing that we're gonna have to do.
So we're gonna have to have
we're gonna get together
so
soon.
my apologies, and I'll just, if it's
all right.
okay.
We'll get that done before.
All right,
okay.
sorry about that,
Okay.
gentlemen. My sincere
Right.
apologies.
No problem. Jill, go ahead and get started.
I think so, yeah. Sorry to keep you guys waiting.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. This is the time and the place of the State Public Works Board meeting. It's Wednesday, September 16th, and it's a few minutes after 9. Got it's like 7 items on our agenda this morning, and that starts with roll call.
Ward Patrick for the record, doing the roll call. Chairperson Adam Hand.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Sean Stewart. Member Clint Bentley. Is your microphone? We're just testing the microphones here. Is yours working, Clint? I think I heard him respond.
Yes.
Member Tito Taberti.
Present.
Member Kevin Lewis. Member and Director of Department Administration Laura Freed.
Here.
Thank you. So let the record reflect that Sean Stewart is not present and Kevin Lewis, and we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ward. Then the second item on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment this morning?
Susan Stewart for the record. We have not had anyone call in to the line placed into the agenda for public comment at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Then moving on, our third item on the agenda for possible action is discussion and possible action on the State Public Works Board Contractor Qualifications Subcommittee recommendations.
Susan Stewart for the record. And with enormous mea culpa, I apologize. One of the forms included in your packet is incorrect. So I've asked the chairperson for permission to table this matter until our next meeting, and I'll get the correct form in there and we'll present the subcommittee's recommendations to the board at that time.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. And Member Lewis has joined us, and Member Stewart has joined us also. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Your timing is impeccable, gentlemen. We're at agenda item 4 for possible action, which is a highlight of our day today, which is discussion and possible action on the administrator's recommendation to the board for the 2021 capital improvement program. And I assume, Ward, that you'll be presenting that. Thank you.
Ward Patrick for the record. Good morning, everybody. Pursuant to NRS 341-100, the administrator will present the recommendation to the board for the 2021 capital improvement program. The board approved the 2021 capital improvement program will be presented to the governor on or before October 1st of even numbered years. We'd like to start up the PowerPoint presentation, please, Randy.
And excuse me, this is Susan Stewart for the record, just for a little protocol this morning. If everyone participating on Teams could mute their lines unless they're talking, that would minimize the background noise. Thank you.
as part of the Department of Administration under the leadership of the Director Laura Freed, Ward Patrick, for the record, I'll be presenting the Administrator's recommendation this September 16th of 2020. The agenda for today will include going over our division's vision, mission, and philosophy, deferred maintenance overview, prioritization of projects that'll include categories of deferred maintenance, capital construction, and economic development, as we discussed in the last board meeting. The vision of the division is that state agencies will occupy exemplary facilities. Our mission is to provide well-planned, efficient, and safe facilities to state agencies so they can effectively administer their programs. And the philosophy that we use day to day is to work as a team to build consensus, take pride in our work, and serve with humility. These slides should look fairly familiar from 2 years ago. We've added a little data to these. And so to go over this briefly, you see the orange section is the CIP approved amount for deferred maintenance. So that's the orange bottom line. So you can see here that the amount of deferred maintenance that was approved in the decade between 2017 and 2015 averaged approximately $44 million per biennium. Likely as a result of the board's concerns for deferred maintenance and a letter sent to the governor's office under the Sandoval administration, deferred maintenance was funded at $114 million in 2017, and then under the Sisolak administration, you can see $119 million in the orange lower tiered line. So these are the actual approved amount of deferred maintenance. The yellow line is from our facility condition analysis summary information. And so this is the deferred maintenance component, and it's what that group has recommended over a 10-year life cycle. So this is not the immediate needs, this is a 10-year life cycle of needs. And so you can see that there was some fairly consistent amounts of recommendations up to the $301 million in 2017. And then we have a little hockey stick effect where the recommendations for deferred maintenance went up to over $500 million. This was largely due to inflation and taking more of a systems approach to deferred maintenance in the engineering systems in the state's buildings. As of February of this year, the number is $527 million, so it's a mild increase. Then the gray section is what was seen by the board in the August meetings for the CIP agency requests. And so there was another mild increase from $623 million last session to $626 million this session. Now I would pause for any questions on this item.
Remember, hand for the record, just out of curiosity, or the big increase from 301 to 503, you said it was inflation, if I understand correctly, it was inflation and a systems approach. About what percent, was it 50-50, or was it more of the systems approach than the inflation? But just ballpark.
I would say generally the greater portion was the systems approach.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
To the next slide. I believe we've discussed this at the prior 2 or 3 board meetings, and so just to hit some of the high caliber items here. We've got legal requirements, or what's driving the prioritization criteria for deferred maintenance. Continuing projects, so there in prior sessions there could have been a planning project or a phase one of a project, and so those projects were considered priorities in the past, and so they get a nod, higher look at them, that they're likely to be included in this package. Then we've got a category that relates to the type of facility, and so government facilities, institutional, public safety, those types of facilities are higher on the list, and then we have a list of other facilities. The prioritization also considers information about the conditions in the facilities. So it could be a essential government facility, yet the condition is not warranting the project to be funded. So one might think, oh, this is an important facility, this project should be done, but upon observation by our staff, we see that the condition doesn't warrant replacement. So that's this last category with the asterisk on this slide. Any questions on this slide? Slide number 6, deferred maintenance legal requirements. So the first category was legal requirements, and we've identified these projects that are higher priority regarding that categorization. Statewide ADA program, this is very similar funding level as to the last session. Statewide fire and life safety. This project is solely justified based on one prison that was built in 1989, the Ely State Prison. And so this is a project to replace a fire alarm system in that facility. Statewide indoor air quality. Here we see other funding of $25,000 planned to be provided, committed to be provided by the Division of Risk Management. And this is an area where we're working to be proactive. So if there's mold abatement or asbestos, lead-based paint, those types of issues, the goal of this program is to be proactive. Another legal requirement is the electrical project at the Plum Lane Armory, followed by an elevator modernization at the Icon building, which is the building we're in. We're in here with Director Freed, and the chairman is here in the what we call the Icon building. And then finally we have the statewide building official program, and so this project enables the Public Works Division to bill applicants for permits and then contract for contracted inspections and contracted plans examination work. Looking at deferred maintenance project continuation. So these are some projects that were in the CIP in 2019, and some of these will also be projects that were part of the sweep process as a result of the special session and would be referred, further details were provided in prior board meetings, but a reference would be Senate Bill number 1. The first project is a seismic upgrade project to the Heroes Memorial and Annex, and this is the building that houses the Attorney General's office. And this will be the last major office building that requires seismic upgrades in the Capitol complex. There are other buildings that are, there is one other building, but it's known as the old Armory building, now occupied by Buildings and Grounds, that will also need to be seismically retrofitted sometime in the future. Project MO3 is replacing the domestic water and sanitary sewer at Northern Nevada Correctional Center. And this project receive planning funds, which means that in this case that it was fully designed. And so this is what the American Society of Professional Cost Estimators would say is a high degree of accuracy in the cost estimating, because this is based on a full design. Same thing goes for the MO4 project. This was a planning project last session. MO4 is replaced domestic and heating hot water piping at the Ely State Prison. Project M08 was a, we'll call it a victim of the sweep process. So this is a project that we retained the design money, and so the design is in the works on this project. This is for the Nevada Department of Wildlife. M16 was a planning project last session as well for the much needed electrical system upgrade at Northern Nevada Correctional Center. For the record, this is $19,669,185 request by the Department of Corrections. M26 is the pavilion renovation at the Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Fernley. And this project was swept last session as well, and so now it's back being requested to be refunded. That's the same condition for the park facilities and maintenance and ADA upgrades at the Fort Churchill State Park, which is located near Yerington, Nevada. And then another swept project is the exterior renovation of the State Capitol and Annex building. That completes a couple of the priorities that included the legal and continuations types of projects. We're now moving into deferred maintenance. There's a number of pages of these. I'll look through and highlight a few of these. For the board, I would point out that project M06, which is the third item on this page 8 of the PowerPoint, is the higher education capital construction project and special higher education capital construction project. And the other funding here, the $3.4 million, is what is known as slot tax funding. So the university system has received $15 million in this category for quite some time now, and so that's up here on the high priority list. That's an expected expenditure out of the CIP. Ely State Prison is item number 4. The fourth item here listed as project M07, underground piping replacement. And so there was some emergency conditions where 3 of the housing units were shut down this last session, and so there was emergency repairs made, and so this is to replace the balance of what we're calling in the industry medium temperature hot water system. And so these medium temperature systems tend to be at higher pressure, and so small leaks tend to be big problems, and so that's rated high up on our prioritized list. Looking further down the list, we'll see HVAC systems at the Carlin Readiness Center, which is project M19, the second one from the bottom. And so this is a project that's 75% funded with maintenance money from the federal government and 25% funded from the state. These projects have non-qualifying expenses, so the math doesn't quite work out on these items. For the mathematicians in the room, costs like project management and inspection, plan checking, and other miscellaneous costs are burdened 100% by the state in this case. To the next slide, looking down project M23, this is the DMV project in Carson City, and this was a planning project last session. So upon approval, we anticipate bidding this project and getting things going on this project right away. So this is a $5 million project. There's 4 buildings at that location, including a computer facility, and it was considered a complex project. Therefore, it was in planning last session and is being requested here for approximately $5 million. To the next slide. This is the last slide on the deferred maintenance in prioritized order. My only comment on this page is that our leadership team here at Public Works did a site visit on the second to last project, which is the dome renovation at the Nevada State Capitol. And so we did a walk around. Just, Ken, was it this week or last week?
It was Monday.
It was Monday. It was Monday, so it's like 2 days ago. And so
Seems like last year.
it seems like a while ago, yes. So this is the dome renovation. There are 4 domes on the Capitol building in the annex, and this was to upgrade the big dome that we're all familiar with on the Capitol building itself. And so our review is that this should be handled with normal maintenance as opposed to capital funding. So the needs that we all saw, which was Kent and I and Ron Cothran, the lead in our Buildings and Grounds section, our deputy there, we included together that wouldn't need to be in the CIP. So the administrator's recommendation would be modified at this time to remove project M48, dome renovation, Nevada State Capitol, and that would remove $414,850 from the recommendation.
Member Hansberger, so I've just got a question, Ward, on the first page of the deferred maintenance. You brought up the 15 million that goes to the higher education, and that being a number that's, I think your words were expected. I recall seeing that same number in the past. And so is there what's the basis, I guess, for that number?
I believe there's a statutory basis for that number. And so I also point out that in the System of Higher Education's request this session, they asked for additional $30 million. And so that's not in this recommendation, but the argument was made that deferred maintenance is increasing in the university system as well, and there's been no real accommodation for inflation. But so at this time, it's not in my recommendation to do that $30 million project. I would point out, when we get, I'll make a few more points that relate to that in the capital construction area of the presentation.
For hands the record, thank you, Ward. I was curious. I'm not lobbying for additional university funds. don't assume there's some bias there.
Ward Patrick for the record on slide 11, non-legal deferred maintenance statewide programs. So here we have the statewide roofing program. And so last session, this was funded at approximately $10 million. And we think that $7.5 million is the right amount of funding to go ahead for the next 2 sessions. And keep in mind that some of these statewide programs, we list priority 1 projects in there as well as priority 2 projects. So we're funding the priority 1 projects, and savings from priority 1 may be used for priority 2 projects. So it's a kind of a flexible type of a system going on there. So then Endow recently acquired a building in Reno that needs some roofing work, and so that's the second project there. SO4 is the statewide advanced planning program, of which this is this does largely, it puts together this CIP book for this presentation. So it accounts for our staff time, as well as some contingency funding for studies that weren't known to be necessary prior to the legislative session. And then finally here we have the statewide paving program at $2.4 million. Looking at capital construction prioritizing criteria on slide 12, you'll see that this is a sister document to the criteria for maintenance projects. So essential government facilities are listed here, as well as the other facilities. That's very similar to the prior prioritization slide. But then I would point out that there's other considerations for the capital projects that include if it's mandated by law, life safety, FF&E from previously funded construction projects, which I believe there are none in this session. Commitments from the legislature, own versus lease decisions, percentage of non-state funding, which this was a request from the board to see some of these economic development projects as well. Required level of control related to the custody level. Level of service to the public, and so you'll see DMV project in here, and then also facility condition needs index, which is this index is a percentage of the repair cost divided by the replacement cost of any one given facility. So for example, Nevada State Prison is over a 100-year-old prison, and the repair costs were significant. And in the economic downturn in 2007 and 2009, it was chosen to use new housing units rather than keep refurbishing the historic Nevada State Prison. Page 13 is for capital construction. This first project was a victim of the sweep process, and we retained design funds for this project. And this is for the Nevada Division of Forestry. Project CO2 is the Fleet Services Maintenance Building near the Grant Sawyer Building. And so this project was was designed in the 17 CIP, and the request was withdrawn last session. You can see here that this project is funded with other funding. And so this is an enterprise fund division of our department. And so they'll be paying that back after construction is completed. The ensuing 10 bienniums will be in their operating budget to repay this. C03 is an interesting project. You'll notice a typographical error here on this where it says advanced planning. This was advanced planning before the board in August, and since that time we've changed this to a construction request based on information from the National Guard. And so what that information includes is the National Guard Bureau gives preference to funding to states if the states can enter into construction within a year of construction appropriation. So what that means here is the local state guard has been awarded this project, and the official notice on the construction is planned to be in October of 22. So this project could allow the state to get special preference on other future projects if construction happens before October of 2023. And in order to make that happen, it's likely we'll do an agency project with some of their existing design funds. And so the design is not included in this project. And it's important for the state and important for the Guard to have some preference from other states in order to get other big MILCON or military construction projects. I would also point out that construction of this item we just talked about would likely not occur until, say, September of 23. And that would almost let one believe that why fund construction now if it can be after the next session is let out in July of 23. And so the reasoning there is there takes a certain amount of schedule and effort to and permission to bid the project and award the project and get in the dirt by September of 23. And so the concern that we had is that will this be tying up $25 million of state funding that really won't be used or needed in the next 2 years. And so we consulted with the Treasurer's Office debt personnel, and they appreciated being informed of this project, and the there's always needed follow through on all the initiatives that have any complexity, and this is one of those. And so the goal there would be to use next biennium's bond funding, not the 21 bienniums, but the 23 biennium's bond funding. And so, the kind of what's going to be available then. So this project will not, being funded for full construction will not inhibit other things being done in the next biennium.
Member Hands the record. Thanks for that explanation.
Right.
It's good to see. I mean, it's great to use other people's money.
Right. Yeah.
Other entities' money.
So this is a project that the Guard is awarded, and so they are going to receive the design money this October, and so we can start design sometime in the fall with what we call an agency project, and then hopefully get in the dirt by October 23, implying that we want to plan to succeed, so it'll be in September or earlier. Thank you. Here we see project C04, the Cave Creek Dam Rehabilitation Project. This has $6.9 million of other funding, which the Department of Wildlife has had that committed to them from federal sources already, and there needs to be a 25% match, and that's what's included here. This project is near Ely, Nevada, and important to the community there. Project C05 is the Engineering and Academic and Research Building for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So this project was funded for design in the 17 CIP, was partially funded for construction in the 19 CIP, and was swept as it was it had 50% general fund money, which the budget reductions were looking for general funding. So this would fund the project in its entirety, not a single phase of the construction project. That's part of the administrator's recommendation. Here in the capital construction area, we have project C06, the Hobart Reservoir Dam Rehabilitation. This is part of the Marlette Lake water system. So this is a little bit of just a recording from 2 years ago. As it turned out, we requested funding for the Marlette Lake Dam as part of the Marlette Lake water system last session, and of which that was applied for after this meeting 2 years ago, and it was selected for further review, meaning after passing environmental and historic preservation hurdles in the federal grant process, that would then be awarded and start working on that. And so right now, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, on that, give you a little update on the Marlette Dam project. We have not initiated any work on that because we're awaiting the FEMA's to complete the historic and environmental processes. And we've been involved with FEMA for over a decade, and what usually turns out is, and you'll appreciate this, is that they tend to have emergencies there. And so things somehow get delayed. And so right now we're working on getting permission to do some of the advanced design to enable the approval for the full amount of their grant. And so the goal that we're working towards is to initiate a design contract with the state funding that's in the prior project, and therefore moving the grant award process along, which would also mitigate inflationary pressures on the project. So this project is considered a duplicate of that. I would say that to enhance, we thought we had a pretty good chance at that last one, although it was nationally competitive and we received it. And we do not have this $10 million grant awarded at this time on project C06. However, we would say that in the FEMA world, we've received design money from them to advance this project, and that's considered a benefit in their prioritization system to be awarded prior grants that were planning grants. Also, many of the other priority boxes that relates to this item, there's some pretty good check boxes in that area, so we're seeing this as a positive and likely project to get awarded this grant, otherwise it wouldn't be in the administrator's recommendation. Much needed project, but also we believe we got a solid chance of getting the grant, although we don't know we're going to get the $10 million grant. Project C07 is a parking project for the National Guard. C08 is the purchase of some property for the National Guard. And so during the board hearings, you'd have seen this as their priority 17. And since then, only 3 weeks ago, Ken? Is that about right?
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, they've sent us a letter asking for that to be one of their highest priority projects because it's strategic for them. Its location is near other property for them. And so that keeps them more centralized. And so that's in the administrator's recommendation. And then the final project is a project that was a victim of the sweep just in this last spring. And that is the comfort stations at the Valley of Fire State Park. And this relates to ADA access and serious deferred maintenance, in that these comfort stations that are part of this project were originally installed in the 60s, early 70s. Like last session, we have
Chairman Ed,
oh good.
Yes.
it's Bertie. May this be appropriate to ask Ward a question on the UNLV engineering building, or do you want to wait?
No, absolutely. Please do, Tito.
Thank you. Ward, I didn't quite grasp the what you said about the UNLV engineering building, where it is. I heard you, but I'm thinking about, I want to be sure I know what you said, because I'm part of that. I just want to know what you said.
Yes, I could clarify that. So project C05 on page 13 is the Engineering, Academic, and Research Building for UNLV. And so this is a 50-50 project. So it's a $73 million project, 36.8 for UNLV and for the state. And so this project was funded for full design in the 17 CIP. And it's been, all that work has been completed. It has been plan checked and is a shovel-ready project. Would you need further information on that, Tito?
Well, does UNLV, have they raised their side of this, the money? Where's all that from going forward, in your opinion?
I appreciate that. So this project was approved as a partially funded project in the last legislative session, and UNLV issued bonds for that portion from last session, which they still have those available, which is $20 million. And so my opinion is that the big university has capacity to raise the rest of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Slide 14 for planning. Last session we provided a certain number of planning projects, and this is a reduced level this session, and most of these have other funding component, as you can see here. So the first project is the Grant Sawyer office building remodel. So this project last session was funded through full design and plan checking, and then was, I suppose the proper term is a victim of the sweep of the budgetary shortfall. So this $5.3 million funds plan checking, design development, and construction documents with other fees, including project management fees. And so this is just replacing it to its prior funding level. I would note that this is a reduction in overall funding since we've received those quotes, and we're funding this with what we think is necessary funding with the current design team. Next item is the advanced planning remodel and addition for the Southern Nevada State Veterans Home. And so this project is, as you've seen, is requested by the Department of Veteran Services. And regarding the other funding availability, I believe this grant has been applied for but not yet awarded. The headquarters building for Department of Public Safety. This project is a highly preliminary design effort. This is not construction documents, it's not design development, it's not even schematic design. It's engineering studies and programming. So this project was recommended by the board and the governor and declined by the legislature last session. So you'd think, why would we re-ask for it if it was declined? The new information that we've all heard with the Department of Public Safety is that there's a need for the laboratory building that is a result of the cannabis program. And so that makes this project a little different, and I understand it's a priority to develop that laboratory, which would be included in some of the planning for this project. Here we have project P05, advanced planning for the general instruction building, and this is at Floyd Edsel Training Center. This is for the Nevada National Guard. So we mentioned before the construction project, which was the Washoe County project. That has been selected and awarded, and it's going through motions to get funding into works of the project. This project is is not awarded, this grant funding is not awarded at this time. The National Guard will have information in December of this year, December of 2020, as to if they have been awarded this project. So that will be in line with timing with the governor's office review of this and before it goes to the legislature. And so if awarded, this project will likely stay as is in the CIP, and if that information doesn't come through in December, then it would likely be deleted. And so it's a much needed project, and this enables everybody to see what the impacts would be if it was selected by the National Guard Bureau as part of their grant program. The final project on the planning horizon here is the Department of Motor Vehicles Silverado Ranch facility. And so the department requested only one project, and the board heard Director Butler's request for funding at that time, and I couldn't do it any more justice than that. But so we're the administrator's recommending this project to be funded. As in the year 2011 CIP, the board has asked for, and we provided some projects that are in the economic development area. And the way I would categorize these projects is they're not completely justified based on need, but they will provide federal funding that is available that will bring work into the state that ultimately these projects, would be needed, and even in the short term, the state would benefit from these projects. So quickly, you see some of these that are somewhat programmatic with a loading dock and replacing overhead doors as part of an energy enhancement, but not necessarily deferred maintenance. Upgrade interior lighting, which is more of an energy project. A couple fencing projects, some exterior doors that are still in working order, but are, getting to the point that they will need to be replaced in the future. And then another kind of programmatic project to create shade at the Clark County Armory. And so all these projects we would put in the category of not yet critical, but are providing other funding that would benefit the state regarding work in the state and funding in the state. That concludes the presentation on the project specifics. And so on slide 16 we see here, which has been reviewed many times. I don't think we're going to find any math errors in this here. And so you see the categories that we went through previously. And so the overall recommendation is $359 million, which is approximately $9 million higher than the approved CIP in 2019, and it's approximately $9 million higher than the approved CIP in 2017. We have, and I've discussed some of this big picture information in the past. We have had downturn of the economy, as everybody's aware, and so we're anticipating little. I'm not going to say little to no, because the Treasurer's Office won't allow all these projects to be bonded. So there's going to be some small need for general fund in the CIP. The last two sessions, there was an average of $75 million of general funding in the CIP, and so we anticipate that to be, take the 70 off of that $75 million average, probably about $5 million of general fund. We still haven't done a complete review of the general fund needs here relative to what can be bonded, but this $232 million of state funding, looking back at the Treasurer's Office affordability study, it says that there's $200 million available. So that's largely the basis of 232. And then also, given that we're using 24 million of future sessions state funding for the, what we call the WCTC, the Washoe County Training Center. So we're kind of right in that, with a little bit of general fund money, we're kind of right in that $200 million area. And of course, after October 1, the board's recommendation will be at the governor's office for further review, and the treasurer's report will be updated during that time frame, and there'll just be a lot more known information. And so that's the basis of the overall and the 232. And I think we covered pretty adequately. The other funding is listed here as 127 million, which, to do a quick recap, there's 36 million of the UNLV engineering building within that. And there's, I think about 19 million in the WCTC project in that funding. And then there's a few other grants in the $10 million size for some dams. And then there's a lot of miscellaneous projects also in there. So I appreciate all the comments and questions as we went along, and I look forward to any other questions.
Member Hampton Record, thank you, Ward, for the presentation. Are there any questions for Ward? There's folks have been pretty quiet down south.
Sean Stewart for the record. So just to clarify, we really won't know what the state might have available until mid-October.
Ward Patrick for the record. The Treasurer's Office will refine their bond affordability study in mid to early December.
Sean Stewart for the record, just because it's really quiet. I know we had some pretty rough years during the recession. Do you know off the top of your head, Ward, what the lowest amount we've been able to fund in the past was? Was it around 60 million, 2012, 13 area?
That is correct. So interestingly enough, 2000, while people are thinking up more questions to stump the administrator, in 2007, the CIP was a historic high in the order of magnitude of 900 million. And that was right at the time of the last downturn of the economy. And there was over 200 million general fund in that CIP, and it was predominantly swept, similar to the $100 million that was swept or offered back on or about the time of the special session. So then in 2009 and 11, the CIP went down to that level that you were mentioning, Member Stewart, I think it was even as low as 50 million one of those years. Yeah. And so then there's kind of been this gradual climbing out of that low level in the last two sessions, which were about at the $350 million level.
Member hands the record. Sean, you didn't get him with that one. Do you have another one for him?
I'm working on
it. I could add a little information that maybe should have been brought forward earlier. So there were some revisions. We all have these books here, and there were some revisions from the various books. And I think at one point in the last meeting we talked about where we updated the inflation rates. So inflation rates we were using with the departments were all at 6%, and we procured and reviewed and accepted a study from O'Connor OCMI, O'Connor, the estimating group. And so we've refined those down to 5.16 in the north and 4.1 annual percentage rate in the south, and that's was largely driven by an anticipated level of inflation from June of 21 to June of 22 to be low in the 2 to 3% range, and then higher the subsequent year, because almost all of our projects are being executed during that time frame. And so the cumulative rate was 5.16 in the north, and 4.1 is the expected inflation rate in the south, and that's all in the book that was discussed 3 weeks ago. And so then I would offer that we had some technical difficulties with our databases, and some of the locations were incorrect in the database and so that was driving some of the inflation rates. And so that actually created some savings out of what was in the CIP book. And so there were some, and many of these were lower priority projects, not in the administrator's recommendation, but the overall book that was approximately 1.8 billion, that update of the locations reduced the overall 1.8 billion by approximately 7 million. So if you're looking through the book and you're wondering why some of those are different than this summary sheets, you'll know why there. Then I would also offer, I think, a keynote that I wish I would have brought up earlier is we discussed with the board that we think there's great advantages for the state of doing a statewide project for deferred maintenance. And so the board historically has been concerned about deferred maintenance, and you can see in the hockey stick graph that some of the board's actions have made headway in reducing the level of deferred maintenance. And so there's a project within this, and I'm going to ask you, Randy, to go to a page in the outline, in the presentation. I missed this on our way through. It's one of the deferred maintenance slides. So I think it's on page 8, item number 2. So when you get there, find page 8, item number 2, which is also M02. So this is deferred maintenance, Department of Health and Human Services. This is a pseudo statewide project. So what we've done here is we've taken 6 or 7 of the maintenance projects from HHS, and we considered those priority 1, and those added up to, on a project cost basis, the 17.8 million you're seeing here on your screen. Then we've added to the bottom of that what is in our current book. They're called priority 2, but on the form we're using now, we're calling that deferred, which the intent is to enable those that are not specifically budgeted for to be completed out of savings on the above projects. So this $17 million is a project here. So if you were HHS, you might say, how come I only have 1 project? But so within that, there's 6 or 7 key projects for them that are in the higher priority. And thank you. And then there's a few projects that are not specifically funded, but the goal there, as in other statewide projects, is if this is on the record as being authorized and we have savings in the funded projects, we would then execute some of these other projects that as time goes by, priorities might change. And so what has happened in the last 2 years is there's been a number of, and the chair knows about this, there's been emergency projects. So at HHS specifically, up at the Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services campus in Sparks, there were a couple projects that were emergency projects. And so we had an air handler fail and we had a boiler fail. And so, but this So there's always that risk in the whole CIP process that there's a project that we would call 1B, which implies necessary, needed, but not within the funding authority. And it's not as important as the 1As. But we thought we should do it now, but can't. And so so these 1Bs here are deferred. And so, but they're planned to be on the record, so they will be able to be completed if savings allows from the ones that we thought were critical. So to go through that in a little bit, there are 8 projects that are recommended for the $17.8 million. And so some of these are in the high priority buildings, like institutional buildings of Lakes Crossing, in 24-hour facilities like Kellyanne Youth Center. So HHS has all these key facilities that are occupied facilities, and so all 8 of those projects are in key facilities: the Nevada Youth Training Center, Deanie Townsend Mental Health Hospital. Okay, then we have a list of 10 additional projects that may be able to be done. And so we took a little, we listed all those projects that the PMs thought were 1Bs. So our project manager said those should be done, but the condition doesn't warrant them in the 1A group. That is what you see in the administrator's recommendation. I'm running out of material, Member Stewart. So, Ward Patrick, for the record, so it's, at some point, Mr. Chair, you'd ask for a motion.
Are there any other questions for Ward before I ask for a motion? Hearing none, then do I have a motion to approve the 2021 CIP as presented?
Ward Patrick, for the record, I would just clarify that the dome project would be removed from the PowerPoint.
For the record, Susan Stewart, as presented, actually takes care of that, because it was presented as being deleted. So I think that the form of the motion, the content of the motion is acceptable.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Susan.
Member Sean Stewart, for the record, I would make that motion, and Board, good work. This is a lot to go through, and it looks like it's well put together.
And I'd like to thank the team based on that. So certainly we have in the room here, we have Brian Walker, who was a PM in the winter and now the chief of planning in the spring. And he was a large component of the SWEET project, and we had conflicting challenges to unbuild the CIP and build the CIP. And so it took a lot of effort from all our staff, all of our project managers, administrative staff really worked hard and pulled it together. And so I wouldn't allow you to thank me, Member Stewart, without thanking the team. Thank you very much.
And Susan Stewart, for the record, we need a second on the motion.
Before I make the motion, Tito Taberti, second. I'd like to congratulate Ward on the Bureau speak. I just ran it through my incongruous language machine, and it came up as clear as the muddy river running through Sean Stewart Mega Ranch. With that,
So Member Taberti, for the record, that was a second of Member Stewart's motion.
yes, Counselor.
Great. Thank you, Member Taberti. Do we have any discussion? If not, the voting that we've been doing is in this electronic world. Can we? I guess we've got everybody. It's not like. Okay, so if all in favor, if you please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We're here. And the next item on our agenda is public comment. And do we have any public comment?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I think we have agenda item number
Oh.
5 before we get to public comment.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Stewart. This is for possible action, thank you. Is board comment and discussion, and this is relative to upcoming agendas and so forth. And maybe we need to discuss the agenda, or I guess the meeting around the item we removed from we tabled today.
Right. Susan Stewart for the record. I would certainly defer to the board's preference, but I will let you know that just for purposes of discussing what's coming, we're at the 2-year window where Granite has submitted their application under the old scoring system. So we will be looking at an appeal in the next several weeks. And so while we don't need this September 23rd date because we've resolved the CIP recommendation, going forward, we will need to schedule a meeting in the near future for an appeal. And at that time, as we always try to do, we'll schedule a brief board meeting for purposes of the subcommittee's recommendation. Oh, and I'm sorry, it may or may not be time at that point to discuss what we've done in the past is presented a letter to the governor regarding deferred maintenance and the significance of that. There may be some bolstering of the statewide program that we're proposing for HHS.